So thank you. Yes, I was glad to be invited to share something briefly today. And it's also fascinating going last and just realizing all of the different connections and strands between what we're saying, which I guess isn't surprising because we're all Dharma practitioners. And it was interesting to me to think, okay, something on personal take on Dharma and what's been helpful to me and how it's changed me over the years. Partly because my sort of way in wasn't the Dharma. Well, as I saw it, it was meditation. So meditation was what drew me. I was just fascinated. There must be more to the human mind, this being human, than there was. And intuitively, my response to that curiosity was experiential. You know, I want to learn to meditate. I want to explore this. I want to experience. It was a very experiential thing. And that's what I did for years. And it changed me. It opened me up. It helped me see that the nature of things is change, that change was possible, which is, you know, not an insignificant thing to see. You know, a lot of people might think, oh, I'm old now, I'm grown up or whatever. And most people are like, yeah, I'm actually old, but you know, I can't change, it's too late. So it's not insignificant to see that, you know, you're changing, that everything can change, everyone can change. And also, I remember after a few years of, you know, meditation being very much the path, there was quite a significant turning point after a few years where I used to think, okay, I go and do meditation, I go and do Buddhism, I go to the Buddhist Centre. And then, you know, I was working, had 2 small children, and I hadn't got time, you know, and there was quite a significant moment which manifested mostly as pragmatic, but actually was a real turning point where I thought, oh, I can't go and do Buddhism anymore, I don't have time, I'll have to bring Buddhism into my life. And it became a much more, meditation, Buddhism became much more central. You know, and also, although to me, what I was doing was Buddhist meditation, it was interesting, that thing about identifying as Buddhist. You know, I didn't identify as Buddhist, I did Buddhist meditation, or I did meditation in a Buddhist context. But the fact that it was in a Buddhist context was deeply significant. You know, I'd come to the Buddhist Centre, we were around the corner at the time, this was 30 years ago. And but, you know, I'd come along and we'd have this class and then someone would give a talk, you know, so, and then we'd have a devotion, puja practice, which we're having this afternoon. So, you know, there was still this drip, drip, drip of Dharma. I was hearing the Dharma on a regular basis. I was also going on retreats when I could, you know, and so there was that sense of, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, makes sense, yeah. And then there was also a moment of, oh yeah, that really makes sense, you know, which was more sort of clicking into the Dharma. And so over that time, you know, although sort of experiential practice, meditation is still very much my path, I have obviously absorbed and studied an enormous amount of Dharma over the years. And the image I had when I was thinking about it for this talk is that, you know, if you've done sort of Dharma study, read books, come across it, you'll know that there's lots of lists in Buddhism. So when I think about the Dharma, I think about lists, you know, the 3 lakshanas, the 4 noble truths, the, you know, the 8-fold path, the 5 spiritual faculties, the 6 paramitars, and the, you know, there's lists of 7 and 8 things as well. But, you know, and it's interesting because they're sort of, the way I sort of see it is that, you know, they're often things that I've studied. I've also run courses on many of those, you know, here at the Buddhist Centre over the years. And they feel complete in themselves. You know, they're all a way in that teaches in pretty much the sort of the whole of the Dharma, the whole of Buddhism. And something, although my mind likes to sort of map things and see things and draw them together, there's something about the Dharma, I realise, where I don't feel a need to do that. They can sort of, they're lists that come from different Buddhist schools or different Buddhist times during the evolution of Buddhism. And I don't feel a need to match them up. They can sort of exist as sort of ways in or ways of looking at the Dharma in themselves. And yet they sort of overlap as well. And one of the points of overlap is in a sense the sort of the essence of Buddhism, which was what I wanted to really hone in on today, which is very much the sense of, which was also touched on in both the other talks, is, you know, the emptiness of everything, the teachings around emptiness, which you manifest very clearly, for example, in the 3 lakshanas, if you've come across that, the nature of all existence as impermanent, insubstantial, and unsatisfactory. The sort of the emptiness teaching of that is often talked of as things being insubstantial, but I really sort of prefer the term ungraspable, that you can't grasp and hold them. And that those teachings, which I'll unpack a little bit, have sort of touched me at a heart level, you know, when I was reflecting on this, reflecting on the Dharma and how I've been changed by different aspects of the Dharma. And I realized that in those teachings, it's not, you know, there are lots of aspects of the Dharma that I really love. And particularly there, when I reflect on it, there's this sense of sort of wonder and openness. And, you know, over the years, I've had times of seeing quite directly or clearly in different ways that the nature of that sort of ungraspability, in ways that sort of changed me and have continued to do so, though I can touch into that reality or that connection more easily at times than others. You know, the main way of doing that has been through sort of direct exploration in experience. And in fact, me and someone else are co-leading a course here in November looking at that. I'm just looking at that sort of approach. You know, though, you know, lots and lots of things are needed, you know, that's been a key way in for me, but there's also really important has been just making a commitment. You know, that was another key turning point, that thing of, oh yeah, I am a Buddhist, becoming a mitra, asking for ordination. There was that sense that a lot of energy was used sort of sitting on the fence or not quite being this or that. I didn't want to identify as religious, etc., etc. There's something about launching myself off the fence and really sort of wholeheartedly that made a difference. And there's also been, you know, experiences over the years, again, that connect with those archetypal figures, which again is not, a bit like Darshavani was saying, it's like completely outside of my normal experience, not something I think of as me, but all of those things have contributed. But particularly this sort of central teaching of everything being the sort of empty, ungraspable nature of things, that our experience is made by our minds. You know, you've got that in the first verse of the Dhammapada. You know, that actually all that's happening is that things are arising through the senses, the sense of sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, and perception. And our mind is creating a reality out of that. So that, you know, that sense of everything being a changing flow of perceptions, that things, you know, including us, are not real, solid, fixed. However, and this again, Darshavani also pointed to this in what she was saying, this sense, you know, we can sometimes think about emptiness teachings as not very attractive, that sense of falling, you know, or like a black hole that's going to sort of swallow us up. It's like, so what is there then? But actually, you know, when they're experienced directly, you know, there is also that sense that they're very full. It's very full of life and energy. And but also, there's a line in the Heart Sutra, which I really love. If you may well have come across the Heart Sutra, and it's often recited in the puja and will be this afternoon. But there's a line in there which is, form is only emptiness, emptiness only form. So when you point to these teachings on emptiness, you've got that sense of form is only emptiness. So that's that sense of everything, including us, is this sense of changing flow of conditions, that there isn't a fixed core, solid essence there. But at the same time, emptiness is only form. We can only relate to emptiness through what manifests, through form. So the whole time we are relating through what is, you know, manifesting. And so that is of critical importance. It's not like, oh, there isn't a fixed core essence, so what, you know, it doesn't matter. It matters absolutely and profoundly. We relate in that relative world. And therefore what we do, matters intensely. And that's the Aryavachan was talking about the precepts. I really love the precepts. It's like there's a wonderful sort of clarity there of how we relate. But I wanted to talk about part of the brief was so what difference has it made? And so when I was thinking about that, it is these teachings on emptiness, but also direct experiences of seeing that empty nature of things, seeing how we recreate ourselves moment by moment through sort of grasping after things or trying to push things away or trying to feel a drama and intensity so we can feel we're solidly here. When you sort of see that directly in different ways, it can have quite an effect, even if it's not what's seen sort of all the time. I also had related to what Darshavani was saying about that, the fear that comes from thinking, you're going to fall, or you're walking on a gangplank and you could fall off the end, that sort of, and I think that is a nature of it, in a way, of existential anxiety that can happen. And I think there's a lot of sort of existential anxiety around this sense of falling. And yet within Buddhism, and with, in order to experience directly this nature without, in a way that's positive and full and helpful, we sort of need to be able to let go. And I think that's where those experiences and sometimes the archetypal figures can really help. And that was certainly my experience as well, that really helped me sort of let go and relax, but let go quite profoundly. And so that, her sense was that Amitabha showing her a net, that actually it isn't, you can fall, you can safely let go and you will not fall into a black hole and a void. And there's something on the fridge at home. I live in a community which includes Chrissy, who's here. And there's a little saying on there that says, the bad news is that we're falling. The good news is there's nowhere to land. And I would even take the good and bad out of that. There is that sense of just let go, free fall, there's nowhere to land. So just, the final thing I wanted to end on is some of the ways that this has changed me, and particularly this sort of more, some of those direct experiences of seeing this emptiness, particularly of self and other. And one of them is in terms of, sorry, I'm just fighting this tendency to do this humility thing anyway, I'm not going to do that. This has been 30 years of practice. And one of them is that one of my strongest tendencies in working grounds has been irritation, for years and years. And I worked with it quite well for years and years. And I was meditating and calming and this and that, lots of awareness. So I worked with it quite well. But it wasn't until, about sort of 10 years ago when I had more of these direct experiences of this ungraspable, empty nature of self, that the nature of that working with it changed completely, because it's like actually there wasn't something that was hanging on to that anymore. So it started to really, really change. It still needed conscious work, but now it's more likely if I'm sitting in a meeting where I don't think people are processing things quick enough, which would be a source of irritation. Not that speed is necessarily a good thing, you can miss things, it's just a way of the mind working. And but now I'm more likely to sit there and think, wow, if irritation arises, just think, gosh, that's incredible, that's quite a small thing, and then there's all this stuff going on in my body, and so you can feel it more, and then it feeling things experientially and in a bodily way, it's more likely just to go, oh yeah, wow, that's a big reaction, and then it just dissipates. It's quite rare that I need to work, though it does still happen, that I need to intervene more, or that I might speak sharply, but it's much more rare. And another one of the ways it's changed me is I wrote down a sense of I don't need to be one who knows. I think there is something magical and wonderful in just, I don't know. I've had experiences I don't understand. I will have more. I find that exciting. I love that, and it's that sense of what it gives rise to or linked to is a sense of wonder and openness and receptivity. I wouldn't have said receptivity wouldn't have been a key word that I would have used about myself or others would have used about me when I was first on the sort of Buddhist path. So that's been a noticeable shift, which I think is helpful for going forward in the Buddhist path. There's always also a sense of, I feel more relaxed. There's less striving, you know, that sense of, you know, I'd always walk slightly leaning forward, you know, I was always into the next thing, taking on lots, you know, that sort of sense. I think that has let go a lot, though, you know, there's lots of things happen. It's not just the Dharma. I've just emerged from 2 years of long COVID, and I think that has really contributed in getting rid of that striving as well. Also, I mean, I was thinking about this because what it says on the tin, this is the last one of them, you know, with Buddhism, is this sense of freedom. You know, I mean, that's the word in a way that inspires me most with Buddhism, and that's what I'm here for, is freedom for self and other. And linked to that, you know, I sort of expect happiness. And I was reflecting on this, and I was thinking, I don't feel particularly happy at the moment. You know, there's this, you know, there's a couple of things going on, particularly with my son, which I won't go into, but it's just like, so there's that, you know, there's a source of that. And then I've just been to visit some friends where they've been friends for nearly 30 years, and I know their children really well, and there's something quite painful going on there. So I was just reflecting on this thing. I don't feel free, light and happy this morning as I sit here and before I came here. But the response to those things is different. There's more of a sense of, you know, it's softer, it's gentler. There's more of a there's more sort of tenderness is another word that I can't quite grasp, that I haven't written here either. But there's, whereas before there might be more like, oh, it shouldn't be like this, you know, there's that sort of energy where it's tight. You know, now it feels like there's maybe a poignancy, that's the word, or a sadness, but there's openness within that. And, you know, like Darshavani as well was saying this thing about seeing clearly in that early experience, the nature of everything is love, you know, and it's just like, actually, so that's the only possible response, you know, it's not that I'm like, yeah, I'm really happy, I'm really free. It's more just, but that can be a more accessible response, is a turning towards a being with a sort of sense of love. And within that, I think there's an openness and a relaxation, and there's freedom within that. Whereas, as you know, if you hold tight, we sort of close ourselves off or imprison ourselves in our own sort of cage in our minds. So I think even within that, there is some freedom. That's my 15 minutes.